Hey, everybody, it's Rebecca Johnson of Supergirl Radio. We are going to go ahead and get the live stream started here and hang out until Morgan joins me. We're going to be discussing the Supergirl season 1 episode of Bizarro. So it's a great episode, lots of emotional beats. Very excited to hear Morgan's thoughts on it as we travel back in time. And I see that Morgan is there, so I'll wait for a thumbs up. But if you are watching us live, feel free to drop a comment or a question or a snap judgment in the live chat, and we will get to those. So we will be paying attention to the live chat. So make sure to share your thoughts. All right, so Morgan, I'm going to bring you in. How are you? How are things?
I'm good.
Good. I saw on Twitter that your viewing experience of Bizarro was something.
It was a little suboptimal, I would say. The cats decided that they needed to be involved. It was their time to shine. It was their time to be on screen. So some of it was blocked.
I like their dedication to the project, though.
I like it too. Haven't we all seen Supergirl? Doesn't it usually have like a cat shape in the middle of it? I thought that was just sort of the viewing experience.
That's the way everybody sees it. So. That's the way it was made.
Watched.
Yeah, it was produced that way.
I just watched it as its creators intended, with a cat in the middle.
Yes. There was a warning that came up at the beginning of the episode saying this is how the creator intended this to be seen. So I'm glad that you saw it the correct way.
Clearly in the middle.
All right. Well, hopefully you were able to watch it enough to where you could consume it and revisit the episode, even if it had a cat-shaped hole in the middle. So we are going to go ahead and get the stream started, and we will discuss Bizarro and take any feedback anybody has in the chat.
Leslalar's downfall is just that eyebrow twitch that she can't help doing. Could you imagine if Hope was like, let's add that to the PowerPoint? Excuse
what
me?
Year is it?
How old am I? This is how the podcast breaks up.
This is the last episode of Supergirl Radio. You want a Kryptonian? You got one.
Is it a movie about saving Argo? The answer to that one is no. It's called Witch for a Summer! ! Where does she want to go? Ask her. Talk to her. Really commune with flat Supergirl.
Did we set the bar too high or too low?
I think we set the bar real medium.
You're doing an intensely adequate podcast.
Good.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Benoist, and you're listening to Supergirl Radio.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira.
I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because really?
She looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yes! Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the CW Supergirl TV series and the character of zor-el. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And for this episode of the podcast, we are live and wired on the Supergirl Radio Facebook page and the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel to go back in time. Since Morgan didn't review Supergirl episodes as a full-time co-host of Supergirl Radio until the episode World's Finest, which aired in March of 2016, we are revisiting the first season to get Morgan's thoughts. This week, we will be discussing episode 12 of season 1, titled Bizarro, and hopefully that means we don't need to say things backwards or wear our clothing backwards. I don't think we need to really commit to it that far, but we are going to be discussing Bizarro and Supergirl's take on Bizarro, because Bizarro is actually a pretty big character in Supergirl comics. But Bizarro Girl is a story in the Sterling Gates Supergirl run. So it's one of my favorite Supergirl comic book stories. So if you haven't read Bizarro Girl, definitely check it out. It's a really good look at Supergirl and her compassion. And I think maybe there was a little bit of that captured in this episode that we are going to discuss. But before we get to that, we need to get to
the news. I got so into our episode, I stopped paying attention to where we were in the dock. Here I am. All right, the news. And sad news, actually, too.
It is sad news.
Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman for 3 decades of animated TV specials and video games, has died. He was 66. His death was announced by Warner Brothers and his rep. A cause was not disclosed, but reportedly he had been battling cancer. In a statement, Warner Brothers Animation says, it is saddened by the loss of our dear friend Kevin Conroy. His iconic performance of Batman will forever stand among the great portrayals of the Dark Knight in any medium. We send our warmest thoughts to his loved ones and join fans around the world in honoring his legacy. An actor with credits on stage, television, and film, Conroy became a premier voice actor as the title character of Batman, the animated series, from 92 to 96. He'd eventually give voice to the Dark Knight in nearly 60 different productions, including 15 films and more than 15 animated series spanning nearly 400 episodes and more than 100 hours of television. Conroy also voiced Batman in dozens of video games and was featured as a live-action Bruce Wayne in the Arrowverse 2019-2020 Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event.
He is Batman for a lot of people, or he was,
Yeah.
I guess I should say now. But the Kevin Conroy voice is what a lot of people hear. They'll talk about when they read Batman comics. They'll hear Kevin Conroy's voice, and for a lot of people, he is Batman. You know, we have the Christian Bales and the Ben Afflecks and the Pattinson. We have all those portrayals, but for a lot of people, Kevin Conroy was Batman. And so this is a huge loss, because I know he was probably going to continue doing Batman things, because I mean, hundreds of hours as Batman. It's incredible. So a very accomplished actor and a voiceover artist. Morgan and I both know how hard it is
It's
to
not
do
easy.
some voice acting. So
I did one thing and I was like, whoo, boy, that's too much. Yeah, he was a great, kind of like an iconic Batman. He voiced so many. I didn't realize it had been that many episodes, that many hours of Batman. It's really incredible. I did see that I think it was like the Empire State Building, somewhere in New York, lit up a building with like the bat signal in mourning for him, and I thought that was really nice. But yeah, I think, to your point, I think for a lot of people, you know, you can argue about the live action portrayals of like, this guy's Batman or that guy's Batman, but to a lot of people, his voice was Batman.
Yeah, I saw that the DC Comics Batman social media accounts had changed their profile pictures to the Batman the Animated Series version of the character, which I thought was really nice. And DC also made Kevin's comic book story that he wrote in the most recent DC Pride anthology series available for free for people. I think it's on DC Infinite, maybe, but that's available for free. They've made that available since his passing. So it was gut wrenching when I saw the news. I had to like go find I hate to say authoritative source, but sometimes on Twitter it might get trending that some celebrity has died and it turns out it's a hoax or it's misinformation or something like that. And so I had to go through and figure out, is this true? And then it was just gut wrenching when I realized that it was. So it's just a devastating from a Batman fan perspective and a DC Comics fan perspective. He was the voice of Batman on one of my favorite shows. I mean, not only Batman the animated series, but Justice League Unlimited, which I love so much. And then he did Batman for the Arkham games and things like that. So he really did really put out his version of the Batman that has really stuck around with a lot of people. And he was a great ambassador for the character. He seemed to really love Batman. And you talked about New York City. He tells a story. There was one video that I watched where Kevin Conroy told a story about how he went to go volunteer after 9/11. And he would go, I think he was volunteering at like a soup kitchen or something. And some of the people there heard his voice while he was talking and they wanted him to do the Batman voice. So to cheer some of those people up after 9/11, after this tragic thing had happened in America, in New York City. And he did his famous I am Batman speech. So I thought that was a great example of how he was such a great torchbearer for the character of Batman. Sometimes you might, learn about a celebrity that kind of just did the part because it was a job or paid money and they just kind of did it for the fame or something. But I think he genuinely loved the character of Batman. So I was really sorry to hear of his passing, just because he was Batman for a lot of people. So I love Batman the animated series. I love JLU. So we still have those things to watch, to still hear his voice. So I just wanted to talk about it. I think it was worth mentioning here on Supergirl Radio, even though it's kind of hard to talk about. But he actually interacted with Melissa Benoist's Supergirl on Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
It was not a pleasant exchange that they had with Kate Kane. There was a lot of struggling and fighting between the three characters, but it was great that he got to share the screen with Supergirl, and that always delighted me that they got to be there together on screen. So we have that as well in terms of the Supergirl connection to Kevin Conroy. So it's a sad news to start off with. So sorry to be a bummer right off the top of the episode, but that was some news that we kind of needed to cover. So if you have any thoughts about Kevin Conroy, people are sharing them in the chat. So feel free to drop those in and remember Kevin Conroy if you would like to do so. All right. Well, I guess now that we have talked about the news, we really should hop in the Legion Cruiser and we got to go back in time. Prepare yourself to go back in time to 2016 so that we can talk about the season 1 episode of Bizarro.
Whew, every time. It gets me every time.
You would think it would get easier, but time travel is just still, you just have to, go with it.
It's tough to adjust to time travel.
Yeah. just when you think you've gotten it all figured out, it's still a real process that you have to go through. It's still physically demanding when you go back in time. So we are now back in time to February 1st, 2016, which is when this episode airs. So here is the official description of Bizarro. Quote, Kara faces off against her mirror image when Bizarro, played by Hope Lauren, a twisted version of Supergirl, sets out to destroy her. Also, Kara grows closer with Kat's son, Adam, played by Blake Jenner. So, Morgan, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about this take on Bizarro, to know what you thought about how the show interpreted it and how her mirror image played with Supergirl. So what are your thoughts on the character of Bizarro?
Yeah, I thought she was really interesting. I really liked the way that she was just this like normal girl who was in a coma, and that the evil Maxwell Lord
he's so bad in this one,
abducting all these women in comas that looked kind of like Kara. That's so creepy. Max,
It's so
get
creepy.
a hobby. Um, and that's how she became Bizarro, is that he kind of experimented on her and turned her into sort of Supergirl's opposite. And I think I like the way that the season was kind of building up to that. How did he get her DNA? Our good friend Red Tornado. Hang 10, my dude. He doesn't have to worry about it. He's on a beach somewhere with a puka shell necklace, so none of his concern. And so, and like, how does he know how to make her into a perfect Kara, the perfect antithesis to Kara? Well, he's been testing her out throughout the season and seeing, how fast she is, how strong she is. So he's kind of learned all about her. Oh, she's got freeze breath, boom, fire breath. Do that. She's a dragon. So I really like the concept of Bizarro. And I like that the way that she was sort of introduced into the episode. Honestly, I wish that it had been more of an arc than a one episode thing, because I feel like the concept is strong enough to support that. And I also kind of feel like, even though the character, the Bizarro Supergirl, did have a little bit of an arc, I would have liked to know more about her. I feel like we kind of putting on my future goggles for a second, if you will. I kind of feel like it was kind of a little bit of a red daughter situation, where like the concept was cool, and then we didn't really get to know much about the alternate Supergirl, and then it's like, all right, put her in her coma.
Well, there were a lot of connections, actually. If I can put my future goggles on as well, they're so comfortable, these future goggles,
Aren't they?
but they do a similar thing with Red Daughter in season 4 with Lex Luthor, where he puts her in a chair and shows her all this footage of Supergirl to try to make her hate Supergirl. So it's almost exactly the same thing in the way that they try to brainwash the evil version of Supergirl in order to fight her. So there's a lot of connections, I think, to the Red Daughter storyline. And I would agree with you that I wish there had been more of Bizarro, because the way it's sort of left is like Supergirl has this really emotional connection with her in the final scene with Bizarro, and it's so wonderfully done, and it's heart-wrenching. And I love the Supergirl aspect of it, where she's like, I'm gonna hold your hand till you fall asleep, and I'm gonna be here with you. And then like Bizarro never sees her again. It's like, come on.
We had a great comment in the chat about this, where Rachel says Bizarro is still in that desert DEO. Kara never went back for her.
I mean, if they were going to revisit any of these characters, they should have gone back to Bizarro.
Yeah, and
so
I feel
that's
like
a little devastating.
it was such like a kind of an emotionally charged storyline, and it's like Kara kind of seeing like a dark side of herself, and this is the first time, but it won't be the last. And I feel like it really could have supported like a double episode arc, because I just felt like we were introduced to her and then Bizarro was gone too soon. I was like, no, Bizarro, I barely knew you. Come back, girl, come back. Right. That moment at the end of the episode is really touching, but it plays different with your future goggles on when he never talks about her ever again. She's like, we're gonna put you in this coma, but it won't be forever. We're gonna find a cure for you. And then she's in a coma and she's like, well, maybe. And then what out? It's kind of like the way that Alex was like, Dad, I'll find you.
I'm coming back for you.
Listen, the Danvers sisters make a lot of promises they are not going to deliver on.
They're not really going to follow up on those promises. So that's one of the things I wish they had done with Bizarro, would be to follow up on that storyline. And it's a different take on Bizarro, because in the comics, Bizarro Girl is from Bizarro World. So I wish the show had gotten a chance to do their own take on Bizarro World. Superman and Lois did that, and I think pretty successfully. So watch Superman and Lois season 2 if you want to check out Bizarro World. So that was a little bit different, but I guess it makes sense here that Maxwell Lord creates her, and she's a little bit different, and that's why she's different is because Maxwell Lord changes her up a little bit. But how do you think Kara, for the most part, dealt with Bizarro Girl?
I mean, I think that she dealt with her pretty well. She I think she figures out like right away, like, oh, she's got all of my powers, but in reverse. Uh, so I mean, I think it was also good that she had that team there because I don't know that she would have figured out like, oh, we need anti kryptonite. Like, what
Right.
did they ended up taking her out with? It was a lot of like, okay, we gotta do the, sort of sci-fi jargony language. And I was like, whoa, this is too much. I am too tired to follow this.
So normally they would use green kryptonite on Kryptonians, but for Bizarro characters, their weakness, their green kryptonite is actually blue kryptonite. So I think that is what they used in that second set of things to take Bizarro down with some blue kryptonite. So Bizarros have a little bit different weakness in that. So yeah, they had to
Ah.
they had to find a different solution for that instead of the green kryptonite. And it's noteworthy here in this episode that we're getting back into the James Kara sort of romance thing,
We're back.
even though she's going out on a date with another guy.
Yeah. I think that was actually my big criticism of this episode, which is that I remembered enjoying this one more than I enjoyed it this time around, which kind of feels weird because I feel like a lot of the other episodes, I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of vaguely remember this one, but this one's a banger. And this one, I was like, why do I find myself like a little bored watching this? And I really feel like it was just because the love triangle, square, whatever shape they've gotten to at this point was just so unnecessary. I wanted more Bizarro. I wanted more like Kara facing like Bizarro Supergirl. Like that's exciting. That's cool stuff. I didn't care that the new love interest and her whether or not they were going to work out. Like he can't act, who cares, like move on. And I didn't really care about the James stuff. It like to have Win go like you don't want to get stuck in the friend zone. I was like, bro, he has a serious live-in girlfriend. Like why are you encouraging him to go after Kara? That's super weird. Like the whole storyline really like I don't know, it kind of like shook me the wrong way. Between Kara dating her boss's son, always a bad idea, her boss's son being unable to like act with emotion on his face too,
Sure.
and then like the James Kara stuff coming back up, it was all just like a little bit much for me. I was just I just didn't care for it, and it kind of brought the episode down for me because I didn't want to deal with the romance subplots. I was like, get out of the way. I want the Supergirl stuff.
Well, the problem I think for me was that they used Bizarro to do the James Kara stuff to have that come back up because they and I can understand why they did it in terms of the writing is that they wanted to use Bizarro as a way for James to confess his feelings to Supergirl without actually having to do it to Kara because that would be weird because he's dating Lucy and they live together and they've gone to Thanksgiving together. It's a real serious relationship. So this is his way to be able to confess his feelings for Supergirl without actually having to do it to Supergirl's face. So I understand why they did that. And it's interesting that Bizarro had some feeling like she knew to kidnap James because I guess she had that connection to Kara. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. I didn't quite follow that. I was like, okay, so he got some DNA from the arm, and that's how he got her to like the powers. Did that
Right.
also give her like
I guess her
plastic
soul is in
surgery?
there.
you're so I guess for Kryptonians, it's like you really have to watch out for where you leave your DNA because someone could just like suck out your soul that way. she's like, listen, I got a little bit of your DNA. And now I'm allergic to grass and also in love with James. I don't understand. It's like, I don't think that's how DNA works, Supergirl. And Alex, you should know that after like your many years of medical school.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think they played it up more metaphorically. Because to your point, she did look like Melissa Benoist in the beginning. Was there surgery? Could have been. I would buy it. I've watched soap operas. They're all the time. Like Adam Newman looks different now because he's had a facial reconstructive surgery and now he's played by Justin Hartley. I buy it. Sure. Why not? So I guess, I guess there is, something that you have to kind of go with to be like, oh yeah, this Jane Doe character who has been put in a coma. Yeah, sure. She looks like Melissa Benoist. I'll go with that. And I thought it was an interesting touch in terms of the way that they transitioned Bizarro so that they could have two different actresses instead of having two Melissa Benoist the whole time. They have this Hope Lauren actress. So they use the excuse of her face being corrupted. So I thought that was a good way to do it in terms of explaining away why she doesn't look like Melissa Benoist anymore.
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was pretty cool. And it also probably allowed Melissa Benoist to have like a half an hour of sleep during the filming of the episode.
Plus, it probably gets pretty tricky when you're having to fight yourself for a lot of scenes. So it's good to have someone else in there.
Yeah, that's always difficult.
Yeah. So Bizarro actually comes into these romantic situations plural in Kara's life because not only does she kidnap James and James confesses his feelings for Supergirl to Bizarro, Bizarro also kidnaps Kara while she's on a date with Adam. So really just messing up Kara's love life here. So how do you think in talking about the romance aspect of this episode, so Kat is now having to deal with the fact that her assistant Kira is going on a date with her son. How do you think Kat handled all of that?
Yeah, I thought Kat was kind of weird in this one. She's like too nice to Kara at first, which is suspicious, and then maybe not so nice. I think a lot of the Kat and Kara stuff, like that's on Kara. Like you should know not to date your boss's son. There's only two roads for that. Either you stay together forever or you break up, and that's not going to go great at work probably. And she knows that they're a complicated relationship that they've like just reconnected. So I would have steered clear of that situation, Cora. Wink, wink. But I did think it was interesting at the end where Kat was kind of like, maybe we should be more professional with each other. And it's like, all right. I mean, probably not. It's probably not going to work out for you. Kara likes to get involved. She likes to get in there in your life and mix it up. You know that. That's why you're talking to your son again. I like that the Adam stuff to me really didn't work in this episode. Like I could kind of buy it in the last episode where he was just like, "Oh, that girl's cute. Like I want to ask her out." But in this episode, it seemed like he was hanging like, "Oh, I'm going to stick around this city that I don't live in because this girl is like asking because I want to go out with this girl." It's like, does he have like a job that
he didn't seem like he was in a hurry to
like
to
a
get
life
home. Yeah.
Or that's suspicious number one.
Yeah.
That's red flags.
Where is he staying? Is he staying at a hotel? Is he staying with Kat? Is he super wealthy? He doesn't have to work? Like what's his deal? Or is he just bumming off Kat? Like I don't know what's happening.
Like he just has nothing going on to the point where he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay in this weird city. A pretty girl smiled at me. Like that's Kara, I'm not telling you how to live your life. It's not promising though. It's not promising. And he seemed like a little bit too upset when she was like, oh yeah, like there's a lot going on in my life right now, and you're a great guy, but I can't make it work with you. And he's just like, I thought my baggage was gonna mess everything up. Everything? Is everything one date? And then like later on, Kat's like, you broke my son's heart. And I was like, how? How? In one day? How delicate is Adam?
He got really invested in that relationship very quickly.
He's like, we talked 3 times and she smiled at me. Mommy, she's in love with me. Like, I just don't understand. Honestly, I think Kara dodged a bullet is all I'm saying.
Well, I was trying to remember why they did this in the story of this show, because I guess it was one of those things where Kara had to face the ability to date someone while she was Supergirl. I guess that's her having to learn that that's more difficult than it would seem, and she had trouble with it. And what is that going to mean if she, goes on a date with James? We'll never know, because that really didn't happen.
We will truly never know. We will truly never know.
Putting those goggles back on.
Putting those goggles right back on.
But I guess that's the thing, is that she has to learn that she has to maybe date someone who knows her secret. Maybe that's a little easier for her to do. So I guess that's the whole point of the Adam thing. Otherwise, there was kind of no point.
Yeah, I was also thinking about like, well, what was the point of that storyline? It seems useless. And I feel like behind the scenes outside of the show, it was probably just like he wanted to be on the show with Melissa. So he was like, give me a guest star. And she's like, okay. But I think in show, like story-wise, it was probably to show how difficult it would be for her to date somebody who doesn't know the secret, who's sort of outside of the circle. I kind of get that. I can kind of see the story reason for it, but I just wish it didn't have to like clutter up this episode. I understand it had to be at some point, but yeah, it didn't feel like a really compelling value add to this one. And I can kind of see what they were going for, but it didn't entirely work for me on this one. Like I understand like the kind of the lesson she learned is that it's hard dating when you're a superhero, but I don't know that you even needed that lesson. Like I kind of feel like we all got it.
Yeah, I don't think it really played to the strengths of the story and the character arc here. I think if you took all the Adam stuff out of the storyline for Kara, I don't think it adds much to her journey in season 1. But I do think it gave some nice shading to Kara and Kat's relationship, because I really enjoyed at the beginning when Kat was being really nice to her. Like Kat was like, no, it's fine you didn't get my coffee this morning. Actually, I also got you some coffee. I went and got my own coffee. I liked that sort of different take on their relationship, because Kat was trying to be nice to her because of the Adam situation. So I did think that was probably worth it to have a little bit different take on the Kat Akira dynamic. But otherwise, I don't know that it was all that worth it.
So I see a good question in the chat from CM Gutierrez, who says in season 6 it was implied that Kara doesn't shed DNA like normal people, lose hair, etc., and can only be collected when Kara blows her powers. Did Kara touch the arm after she blew her powers?
This comment is a very astute one. But I would probably err on the side of the fact that in season 6, I don't think they had rewatched season 1.
No.
I don't have any faith that they were like, oh yeah, back in season 1, this is why. I don't think that.
No.
I think that's giving them a little too much credit. I think they just kind of made an excuse for why they had to go time travel back in the past. Because Miss Fiction Fanatic.
Yeah.
I think we were gonna pull it up.
Yeah,
as well,
we were both on top of it.
But Miss Fiction Fanatic says, considering how easy it is to get Kara's DNA, Brainy and Nia didn't really need to go back in time to get her blood. It's real complicated now. If you were to put the future goggles on and go into season 6. Because it causes problems for the storyline. So they had to figure out a reason why they had to go back in time when the DNA thing was kind of not an issue. And also they could have just gone back in time before Lex Luthor uses the Phantom
Yeah.
projector. So they really didn't even need the DNA at all. But they needed a storyline for season 6, so they had to figure out a reason to do it. But
They're like,
I don't think that I'm not going to assume that the writers had gone back to season 1 and used that excuse in their season 6 storytelling.
no, I think they were like, you know what's fun? Time travel.
Yeah.
And somebody in the room was like, but why would they have to time travel? And they're like, shh. Just fully like finger on lips, like, shh, don't question it.
Just
go with
go
it.
with it. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I went with a lot of season 6. Like, just kind of like let the tide take me out to sea. Like, I'm not gonna fight it. There's no point. Yeah, I think those are really great questions. I agree with you. I do not think that they had watched any part of season 1 except maybe the pilot for anything that they did in season 6. So they had no memories of this. None at all.
I like the idea that maybe they did. I would love for that to be the case, but I don't know that I have a whole lot of faith in that personally. But yeah, so there is some connection points there if you wanted to make them from season 6 to season 1. I guess the last thing I want to ask you about this Bizarro episode is the cliffhanger, because season 1, now that we're going back through it, I'm realizing season 1 had a lot of great cliffhangers at the end of the episodes where it was like, oh, I can't wait to see how that flows into the next episode.
What happens next week?
Yeah. So this one ends on kind of a horror movie type scene. So I was curious, Morgan, what were your thoughts about that? As Supergirl flies home and she encounters an alien species. I don't really know what to call the Black Mercy, but some sort of alien substance in her home. What did you think about all that?
When I was catching up on the episode, Mike had just come back in with some takeout, and he looked over at the screen during that scene. He said, "What's wrong with her lettuce?" And I was like, "What? Well said. What is wrong with her lettuce?"
Can we need to put that on a t-shirt?
What's wrong with the lettuce? No, it made me laugh really hard because it does kind of look like lettuce in that scene.
Yeah.
I don't think I left that out on the coffee table as she walks over to it. Weird. It's weird. The lettuce is kind of gross. Yeah, no, I thought I noticed that too in this episode where I thought the episode was over and then they had that stinger at the end and I went, oh, cliffhangers. I remember these. I thought that they did a really good job in season 1 of having those cliffhangers to kind of pull you to the next episode where it's like, okay, well, I got to know what that weird thing on her table was that attacked her. Oh my God, she could be in trouble. And in the last episode, it set up Bizarro by being like, there's a second Supergirl. So I like that they have like put in these reasons for people to tune in next week. I feel like, I don't know, like it's almost feels a little nostalgic to me as I watch like all these streaming shows that are like, binge it or don't. You're gonna watch the next episode. Don't you even? I'm not gonna worry about it. You'll watch it. You'll watch it. So like I feel like it's been a long time since I watched something with like a legit cliffhanger where you're like, oh my God, next one.
Yeah.
So like it's nice to see that style of storytelling where they throw something at the end to make you like interested and like, okay, well, now I can't wait until next week. And it's smart in a first season show too, because you're building your audience and you want them to come back and you're got to give them a reason to come back. With that said, like if there's a weird thing in your house and you're a superhero, don't touch it.
Don't go
Maybe
near it.
don't touch it. She walks directly to it, like touches it and goes like, ew. Like, girl, have you learned nothing? Don't touch it. I was like, it was like horror movie screaming. What are you doing?
Don't run down that hallway. What are you doing? Don't go back in the house.
Exactly.
Yeah, she did touch it and it was gross. So that was a problem. But she did find out that there was something foreign in her apartment that she did not know about. But I thought that was a good cliffhanger. I'm a little more judgy on cliffhangers these days because talking about streaming, just because I want to mention The Crown, because The Crown is my current TV obsession. But season 5, I won't spoil it for anybody, but season 5 sort of ends on a meh. Like it has a shot at the end of it where I
Oh.
was like, really? That's how you're gonna end season 5? That was a little weak, I thought. So I'm always impressed when there is a good cliffhanger that really kind of leaves you like on a jaw-dropping kind of moment. Some of my favorite cliffhangers, like the end of season 4 of Lost, that was a really good one. Don't want to spoil that for
Mhm.
people, but it was kind of like, I'm sorry, what just happened? So cliffhangers are really, I think, very important in terms of getting you to that next episode. So I'm glad to see them here. Like there was the cliffhanger back before Human for a Day at the end of Red Face, where she's like, "I'm bleeding." Like
Oh,
they
yeah.
had some pretty good cliffhangers in season 1, and I kind of don't remember that in later seasons as much.
No, I'm sure that they did it, like, occasionally, but I think that they did it way more often in season 1, and it kind of, like, really shows in terms of, like, them trying to really hook people in there with the episodes and bring them back.
Yeah, I think season 1, season 2, probably there's a cliffhanger where Mikshas shows up in Kara's apartment. So those are some pretty good cliffhangers. So the show, I think, early on was pretty good about that. Is there anything that we didn't talk about this Bizarro episode that you wanted to discuss?
No, actually, I like them. I was surprised with this one. I think my overall feelings about this one was I came in going like, "Yeah, Bizarro, Supergirl," and I left kind of going,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the other episodes, I don't I thought this was gonna be like a controversial opinion coming in because I was like, "Oh, it's Bizarro," but I was just like, I don't know, why did the Bizarro episode like focus so much on her like dating life? I don't care. But I feel like a lot of the other episodes also kind of moved subplots forward for other characters or did some like deep character work, and this one didn't really. I mean, I don't feel like I got like new sides of anybody. I mean, we got a little bit of Maxwell Lord being really nefarious, but we'd seen him do that before. So like, and I mean, I guess we did leave him uh in the DEO, which is fun. That's, that could be an interesting place for him to be in future episodes. But yeah, I don't feel like it did as much with the Bizarro as it could have. Yeah, I ended up feeling kind of, it wasn't a bad episode. I enjoyed it. I felt a little meh about it.
Yeah, as a whole, as an entire episode, there are some things that I think maybe I would have taken out and replaced with more Bizarro stuff. But I think the Supergirl Bizarro scenes are some of my favorites of the entire show. I mean, the fight where you get to see the fire breath
That's so
is
cool.
it's pretty cool as a special effect and a really good fight between Bizarro and Supergirl. I really like that. And the ending scene, even though Supergirl never sees her again, I really like that scene at the end where they have a very meaningful conversation where Supergirl tells her, I was asleep for a long time too. I
Yeah,
really
that line really got me.
Yeah, I really like that because the essence of the Bizarro Girl comic that Sterling Gates wrote is that Supergirl and Bizarro Girl find out that they're more alike than they are different, and Supergirl is trying to help Bizarro Girl get back to her home in Bizarro World. And so that feeling from that comic, I think, was captured a little bit in the episode where Supergirl shows compassion to Bizarro on the show Bizarro and Bizarro Girl in the comic, that she shows compassion to her because she sees herself in her. And I think that is I think they got the essence of the comic right in the show. I just wish there had been more of it because Supergirl, I think at one point she says, she doesn't just look like me. She does not just look like me. She is me. So I thought that there was a good play on the fact that she shared a lot in common with Bizarro Girl The unfortunate thing, I think, is that that mirror image was played more so for the James confession than the Supergirl aspect of it. I think
Mhm.
I would have wanted to have more of a connection with Kara and Bizarro, not necessarily Bizarro and James. I understand why they did it. I just don't prefer it that way. I agree with you. I think it does bring the episode down a little bit. But I really like that last scene between Supergirl and Bizarro, and I think it's probably a standout for me in all of the series. It's a scene that I will typically go back to because I think it's a really sweet scene.
Yeah, I really like that one. I think that was, like, the standout scene for me in the whole episode, and that one line, that she said, like, "I had to go to sleep for a little while too." Like, that really hit me because it really feels like it told Supergirl's story and connected it to Bizarro's story. So there are definitely some parts of this episode I really, really liked, and I also thought I didn't mention this before, but, like, all the special effects in this one, they blew the budget for this one, except they back then they had that CBS money, but, I really liked that was the heat breath and the ice vision
Yes.
twist.
Yes.
What you doing, girl?
And
I love that.
and the scene where Supergirl has to save those people in the tram is pretty good too, where
Oh, yeah.
they encounter each other for the first time, and it's a great example of Bizarro having to face the actual Supergirl, not the Supergirl she's been brainwashed to hate, but see the Supergirl who saves the people, and does something selfless to rescue them. I think that's a good way for Bizarro to be introduced to that. She's seeing who Supergirl really is, and not the Supergirl that Maxwell Lord is training her to hate. So there's a lot of good special effects in this episode. So it's different. I think for a lot. I'm trying to think of other takes on Bizarro. Bizarro, of course, is in Superman the animated series. I can't remember if there was technically a Bizarro on Lois and Clark. There was a Bizarro on Smallville. So Bizarro on Smallville was kind of a jerk. Like, he wasn't I don't know that I felt sorry for that version of Bizarro. He
No.
basically stole Clark's life and, like, slept with Lana and did all this stuff, and it was kind of like,
I
all right,
forgot about that.
you're a real weirdo. So I didn't feel sorry for that version of Bizarro.
No, I was like, "Guy, come on." Yeah, I don't remember the one on Lois and Clark, but it's
I'm
been
trying to think if
very
there
long.
even was one.
I feel like Lois and Clark really liked the comic booky stuff, so I would be surprised if they didn't do a Bizarro. Because I also feel like that was, like, back in the '90s when, like, the Bizarro thing, because of Seinfeld, was, like, a thing that people, like, had entered the lexicon, because on
Right.
Seinfeld, I don't know if you watched, any of it, but there was a period where there was, like, the Bizarro Jerry. He meets his, like, Bizarro
Yeah.
self,
Oh yeah. I
and
know
then
about
all
the
yeah.
Bizarro Jerry's.
And
Yeah.
then they all meet their Bizarro versions of themselves, like the whole group, and they, like, all stand and, like, stare at each other. So I feel like the Bizarro thing was kind of, like, floating around at that period, but I don't know, I could be wrong.
So apparently, because I had
I just wanted to
forgotten
bring up
about
Seinfeld.
this. Well, that is good because at some point the real versions of the characters interact with the Bizarro versions, like they come face to
Yes.
face.
It's so
That's
good.
good. Yeah, it is good. So apparently there was a Bizarro on Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, a childlike clone akin to Bizarro. So not technically Bizarro, but
Mm.
it was an episode called Batman. This version was created and raised by Lex Luthor to challenge Superman. However, Lois and Clark help the clone realize his true nature. I'll have to go back and rewatch that. It's
Mm.
been a while since I've seen that. So I guess there was a version of Bizarro on Lois and Clark, but not technically called Bizarro. So I thought this was a really it was a strong adaptation of Bizarro in terms of the reverse powers and the way that Bizarro connected to Supergirl. There is no Bizarro world, which is disappointing for me personally. I would have
Yeah.
wanted a Bizarro world so that we could, because we talked about that all the time in our future goggle selves. We talked about how we always wanted the show to go off world and do something different and see different places, and that would have been fun to go to Bizarro world, but that never happened. But I think in terms of the characterization of the Bizarro and how she interacted with Supergirl, I thought was a strong adaptation of a Bizarro character on the show. I guess just to hop into the chat to pull up some comments as we go. I thought this was a good comment from CM Gutier 74 saying Kara would never have anything leafy green, lettuce, or kale in her apartment. So that should have been a red flag for Kara when she encountered the Black Mercy. And I also thought this comment from Aaron was a good one about cliffhangers. Aaron says, I'm mixed. I was more annoyed when shows would do cliffhangers because I want them to focus on good story above obliging the audience to come back. You can do both, but I like the former more. Yeah, I think especially for the broadcast television shows, you have to kind of have to do a cliffhanger to get people to come back. With streaming, as Morgan mentioned previously, you don't really, I mean, people are going to watch the episodes regardless. But for network television, you kind of have to do a cliffhanger to get them to come back. So yeah, I like Bizarro. It's on the one of the top episodes for me in season 1, but I think it's also just because I have a soft spot for Bizarro Girl, the Sterling Gates run. So if you've never read the Sterling Gates run and the Bizarro Girl story, I highly recommend it if you would like to read some Supergirl comics, because that's one of the greats. Well, Morgan, if there's nothing else you want to talk about regarding the episode, I guess we could hop back into,
all right,
get back into the
Gotta
Legion
buckle
Cruiser.
up.
We can go back to 2022. All right, so now we are back in the future, and I suppose we should take some feedback about an episode from the past.
Sure. So Daryl wrote in with some thoughts about Bizarro, writing, there's got to be something unethical about Kat changing her behavior towards Kara because of Kara's relationship with Adam. Also, it's an awful power move to constantly get an employee's name wrong. What would be the point? Is Kat secretly somehow that insecure? The point is belittlement. And yes, Kelly's in the episode. What?
Yes, that was something that we probably should have mentioned
Kelly
in
watch.
the discussion. Kelly was in Kat's office talking, pitching headlines for what they were going to do about writing about Bizarro. So Kelly's pitch was Supergirl gone rogue? Question mark. So that was her contribution to the Bizarro story. So I don't think Kat did not go with her pitch, but Kelly's in there trying to contribute something to Catco's coverage of Bizarro.
Oh, Kelly's mixing it up. Good job, Kelly. Way to take the initiative. So he says, Kelly's in the episode. Is this a love pentagon now? James and Lucy are together, but obviously the show is building to James and Kara. Wynn likes Kara, and she's going on a date with Adam.
Mm-hmm.
In spite of Supergirl's best intentions at the end, we'll never see Bizarro again, and she's barely mentioned in the rest of the show. I skipped both Kara and Adam date scenes. I feel better for it. And I feel I am better for it.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the right call. So
I don't think you're missing much.
Daryl mentions about Kat, Kat's relationship with Kara and things like that. I know that you have a theory that Kat wasn't really thrown off by the whole Jean thing.
It's my theory based on the fact that I don't want Kat to have been tricked. So I want to believe that Kat was smarter than all of them. Yes.
But there were definitely a couple of times in this episode where I thought, I think she still knows. Like,
oh.
Yeah, there were a couple of times when like Kara had to like run off and she was just like, yeah, you're fine. Like she was feeling more positively towards Kara. But I also kind of felt like it might be like, you know what? She does this because she's a superhero. like she didn't seem thrown off that like Kara was like just disappearing or anything like that. And then she also seemed like she kind of understood like when Adam called her, like because Kara had disappeared again. I think she thought that like Kara was gonna like make it work, try to juggle like
have it all.
Have it all. She's like, Kara, I've learned that you can have it all. And I thought that you would learn that too. And Kara's like, what? So yeah, I don't know if I was probably reading too much into it, but there were a couple of scenes where I thought, I feel like maybe she does still know.
Yeah, I wonder what Kat would have thought about that excuse about, oh, my grandmother's in the hospital. I have to go check on her. So did Kat follow up on that? Did she see if Kara's grandmother actually was in the hospital? I would have been curious to know if Kat had done some digging into that excuse. But I would like to think that she still knows because we know at the end of season 2 that Kat knows.
That's true.
Even though Kara doesn't realize it at that point. So at some point, I think she still figures it out. So I like that. I like that you're still watching that. So I appreciate that you're contributing to my theory and giving me more evidence for it. So thank you for that. All right. So shall we get into some snap judgments? In the game of snap judgments, each person is presented with 2 options, but must only choose one. First instincts are recommended and explanations are unnecessary.
Okay, let's get to it. So our first snap judgment is Bizarro the villain or the victim?
I just want to remind everybody who's watching live, you can participate with us. So let us know your snap judgment choices in the chat. I think she's the victim. I mean, Maxwell Lord, he probably saved her life to a degree, but then she ended up back in a coma anyway. So I don't know that he really saved her much. But I think she's the victim in this scenario.
Yeah, I'm gonna go victim on this one too. She was in a coma, minding her own business, and he turned her into a Bizarro Supergirl and trained her to hate Supergirl. Yeah, I think that she was, she was sort of the victim in this. I don't think that she was much of a villain at all. I think once she kind of put it together that Supergirl wasn't that bad of a person, she was like, huh, all right. Yeah, poor Bizarro. Okay, which is the better headline? Supergirl gone rogue, Supergirl super menace, or Supergirl? Question mark?
So we are Cat Grant. We're putting ourselves in the shoes of Cat Grant and deciding which one we are going to go with. I'm going to disagree with Kat about the Supergirl question mark, which is the one that she goes with. That to me, that's really weak. That doesn't tell you anything. I think I'm going to go Supergirl gone rogue here. I think
Kelly.
I think that tells you what has happened. I think that it teases it enough for you to you go into the story like, why is Supergirl gone rogue? What's going on with her? I think Super Menace is too like Spider-Man-y, and I don't know that she's being a menace per se, but I think I like Supergirl gone rogue. I think it tells you what you need to know, and I think it at least makes me want to read the article.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Supergirl gone rogue question mark. Because first off, Kelly pitched it, and she's my girl. Respect Kelly forever.
A real hard worker at Catco.
Just really trying to climb that ladder, right?
Don't say climb. She fell out of a building.
Sorry, Kelly. Never forget.
Too soon. Still too soon.
But I also like that it says gone rogue question mark. So has she? We don't know. You got to read to find out. You got to find out.
Yeah.
That right there, that's a headline that catches.
Kelly is a really dedicated Catco employee. I appreciate her hard work.
She really was. Okay, latte or spiced pumpkin with extra foam and a little cinnamon sprinkled on top.
I like that is Kara's go-to coffee choice. I'm going to go spiced pumpkin with extra foam and a little cinnamon sprinkled on top.
Listen, I love a good PSL, a pumpkin spice latte. And so, it's still the fall season. I can't say no to a PSL. I can't say no to some sort of spiced pumpkin drink. In fact, I can't say no at this point contractually to anything pumpkin at all. Like, you got some pumpkin pancakes? Give them to me. It's fall. It's fall, y'all. Do you have a pumpkin drink? Sweater weather. Hand it over. I cannot say no. So honestly, I respect Kara's choice there.
Yeah, a latte is just kind of boring when you compare it
That's
to
so
that. Yeah.
plain. It's
Yeah.
so plain. It's where's the character? Where's the cinnamon sprinkled on top? All right. This one is tough. Fire breath or freeze breath?
Fire breath.
Yeah. How do you turn down fire breath? You could be a dragon. I can't say no to that. Who can say no to that?
It is. There could be some downsides to it, though. Like, what if you accidentally yawned or something and you set a house on fire? Like, what? You'd have to really control
I mean, you could do the same thing with freeze breath, though.
True.
You're just freezing things.
True.
So I'd rather make a toasty fire. Roast some marshmallows.
True.
So this is sort of the other side, the Bizarro
The
side,
Bizarro, yes.
if you will. Heat vision or freeze vision?
I feel like a pyromaniac, but I'm going fire again. I'm going heat vision. I think heat vision is the coolest, and I think freeze vision is weird. That's weird to me. So I'm gonna go heat vision.
Yeah, I also feel like maybe we're discovering something about ourselves. I feel like this question has kind of unlocked something inside. Maybe I shouldn't be allowed around matches now. I don't know why, but freeze vision seems weird. No thanks.
It's just not right.
I'm gonna burn something with my eyes. That's more normal.
Yeah, fun fact for people about the comics, heat vision did not come until much later. X-ray vision was used for a long time as like the precursor to heat vision, and then heat vision kind of became a thing, but X-ray vision was the go-to for that. So the vision powers had an evolving process over the course of the comics.
Interesting. Okay. And then we have one snap judgment from the chat. Snap from CM Gutierrez.
Oh,
Who
gosh.
do you choose? And you have to choose one of them because I truly thought none. But who do you choose? Adam from season 1, Mon-El from season 2, or William from season 5? You have to choose one.
This is really
We're just spoiled with choices here.
Oh, this is
spoiled with them.
Well, Adam is definitely gone. Adam's not
Adam's gone. Yeah,
Adam's not even in the conversation.
When Bizarro captures Kara and he yells Kara, I was like, shut it down and go home. I can't do it.
Mon-El with the beard is great. We all love Mon-El with the beard, but Mon-El did not seem to really care about seeing Kara again at the end of season 6. He was like, bye.
Never again in this life.
Never again in this lifetime. So I don't know. I guess the upside to William is that you'd always have baked goods. You'd have a great muffin or like a cinnamon roll, maybe. I mean, he would probably come with food. So I think that is the upside to William. And William seemed to really like Kara. So he seemed like a good guy. He was real trustworthy. He was a truth teller. So I guess I'm gonna have to pick William on this one.
Yeah, this one's a tough one because my heart tells me none. But that's not an option. And
you have to pick one.
And then I'm like, well, I mean, she at least had some decent chemistry with Mon-El.
Mm-hmm.
But then I remember like that time that he was married and kind of like creeping on her.
Yeah, that was weird.
I didn't love that. And then I remember when he was like, well, catch you never. And then that didn't seem great. So I'm also going with William because listen, William is always going to make you baked goods. So that seems great. He likes journalism just like her.
Yeah.
Super into that. And he's a great babysitter. I think that's also
that's a little questionable.
All right, you're right. He is a medium
He
babysitter.
did die at the end of that babysitting gig. He did get murdered when he babysat.
Listen, babysitting is a dangerous occupation. Everyone knows that. And sure, you get murdered one time while babysitting, and it's all, don't leave the kids with him. They get kidnapped. Listen. He had tried, okay?
He did the best he could with what he was given. Also, is this question who do we choose, or who do we choose for
Oh
Kara?
God. I thought it was who we chose for Kara.
Oh,
but
I was
choose
playing
them.
as who I would choose. Like if I had to choose,
yeah.
like personally.
I mean, I stand by my answer.
Yeah, no, for me, William, but maybe for Kara, it would be a different choice. Would it be a different choice for you for Kara?
No, I'm still going William. Listen, she loves to eat. He loves to bake. I don't see where that goes wrong.
Because for Kara, I might pick Mon-El. That's gonna be hot take coming from me. But I always think about the end of season 2 and how much she loved Mon-El. So if we're going, who do we choose for Kara? I would say Mon-El season 2, because it does in the snap say season 2.
That's true.
So-
It does say season 2. Throw out season 3.
And
But the
season
beard.
6. But the beard
You gotta
doesn't
throw
come
out the
in until
beard.
season 3. Gotta throw out the beard. So I'd probably pick Mon-El season 2 for Kara, but William season 5 for me. So I guess I just wanted to make that distinction.
I'm gonna go double William. I'm doubling down
Doubling down on
on
William.
William. I think, listen, was he boring? Sure.
Yeah.
Did he bring a lot to the story? No. Did he love baking? Yes. I mean, both Kara and I could always watch Bake Off with him. That
Yes.
seems great. I bet he likes a lot of other kinds of cooking shows. I bet he'd watch Top Chef with me. I bet maybe if like Kara was like, could you learn how to make a dumpling? He would do that. I
He
think he would
would.
do that.
I think
Sure.
he would. Yeah.
Sure. So I feel like for all your food-based needs, William's really the guy to go to.
He would have been there and just watch all the things, bake all the things. He would be the guy for Kara if she wanted to eat something. So I guess there is that. No judgments on your snap judgments. All right. Well, we did previously do a DC TV podcast, a DC TV podcast plugs contest. Lots of P's in that. I was trying to distinguish between them, but we did a plugs contest, and Morgan and I have discussed it, and we've actually picked 2 winners because we liked both of them so much. So we ended up picking the submissions from Brian and Joe for our winners for the DC TV podcast plugs contest. And I just wanted to throw it out there that I thought it was fitting that Brian and Joe submitted the winning submissions, because there is a Brian and a Joe on the Supergirl TV series, The Aliens, from the second season. I believe Brian shows up in the second season, and Joe also appears in the second season. So I thought it was pretty fitting that these 2 were named Brian and Joe after the 2 aliens from the Supergirl TV series. I wanted to connect those dots if you were already thinking it, which I'm sure most people
Of course.
definitely were. So we'll be playing these submissions in our Supergirl Radio episodes, and we'll also be sending Brian and Joe some prizes in the mail. So we'll get your information and send you some cool stuff. And so for this episode, I wanted to debut Brian's submission. So we're going to get to some Supergirl Radio plugs, and then we will get to the debut of Brian's plugs. So for the podcast, so enjoy the new podcast plugs for DC TV podcast. If you would like to contact Supergirl Radio, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can call us at 678-718-7252. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Podchaser, and Spotify, where we also have a Spotify playlist that includes music featured on and inspired by the CW's Supergirl TV series. We are listed on DC's fan page, which you can find at dccomics.com/DC-fans. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our Supergirl Radio live streams, make sure to subscribe to the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live and wired. DC TV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of new DC TV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, onesies, mugs, notebooks, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
Hello, and thank you for calling the DC TV Podcast hotline. Please listen carefully as some of our menu options have changed. Supergirl Radio? Press 1. The Flash Podcast? Press 2. Legends of Tomorrow Podcast? Press 3. The Lithuanian Room? Press 4. DC on HBO Max Podcast? Press 5. Stargirl Podcast? Press 6. Superman and Lois Radio? Press 7. Green Lantern Podcast? Press 8. The Sandman Podcast? Press 9. Justice League Dark Podcast? Press 10. DC After Dark? Press 11. For all other inquiries, please stay on the line and the next available agent will be with you shortly.
I like that Brian's submission mentioned that some of our menu options have changed. That's a good meta way to talk about how some of the shows on the podcast network have shifted and changed. And so I thought that was pretty clever.
That was the part of that submission that really got me laughing. And it's so typical of like listening to one of those phone trees that some of their numbers have always changed.
So thank you for sending that in, Brian. We will use it interchangeably throughout the Supergirl Radio episode. So we appreciate your contribution, and we will send you some stuff in the mail.
And since we talked about Bizarro this week, we have some Bizarro designs in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store that we would like to suggest.
Yeah, so if you want to wear some hoodies or t-shirts or have a mug that has a backwards S that Bizarro would have, which Bizarro on the Supergirl TV series did have a backwards S when she was full-blown Bizarro. I don't know how that exactly changed, but you're just supposed to go with it because it is Bizarro. So I appreciate that little attention to detail that the show did. So if you want some Bizarro merch, we have some in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store. I need to get some Bizarro stuff myself because I don't have any Bizarro stuff. So I'll have to do that myself. All right. Well, we would also like to thank our Legion of Super Sponsors for supporting the Supergirl Radio Patreon. These people are Michael, Sam, Anne-Marie, Yvonne, Nicola, Leslie, Abby, Irmgard, Miriam, Nicole, Faith, Brian, Ethan, Danny, and Tara or Tara. Hopefully I pronounced one of those correctly. It's kind of the old Kara situation. So hopefully we got that name. Let us know if it is Tara or Tara. We want to pronounce it correctly. But thank you to everybody who supported the Supergirl Radio Patreon. If you'd like to do that, you can go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio and choose from one of our monthly options there. So thanks to everybody who supports the Patreon. Well, you can find me on a couple of different places. The first you could probably find me on is Vero at Derby Kid, which is Vero is a social media platform that I enjoy. I share what I'm listening to, what I'm watching. If you follow me on Vero and interact with me there, you would know that I've been in a Hitchcock mood in the last week. So I've been watching The Lady Vanishes and Foreign Correspondent, which I had never seen before. I've seen a lot of the later Hitchcock, but some of the 1930s, 40s I have not seen. So I'm trying to catch up on those, and quite good. The Lady Vanishes, it's one of those movies where in the classic film genre where the lead actor and the lead actress, the two main characters would like meet in a day and then they would fall in love and get married by the end of the film. So it's pretty typical, but really have been enjoying diving back into Alfred Hitchcock because he's one of my favorite directors. He also made a film that shares my name. He made a film adaptation of Rebecca. So I always enjoy that. That's it won Best Picture in 1940. So a Best Picture winner shares my name. So he didn't get Best Director, but he got Best Picture that year. So I always have a personal connection with Alfred Hitchcock. You can also follow me on Instagram at the Derby Kid, where I share some pictures and make some Instagram reels on the occasion that I feel like I want to post something. You can also follow me and subscribe to my personal YouTube channel at youtube.com/duckmilkprod, where I talk about film analysis. So I've been going through the Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice reviews written by the top critics of Rotten Tomatoes. And I'll be getting back to that soon because I've had to take a break because of some things that I have had to go to and do. So there is that. And also, if you subscribe to Bill Meeks, our friend Bill Meeks, he has a new podcast called Where I'm From. If you subscribe to that podcast, you will see an episode with me talking about where I'm from in Birmingham, Alabama. So we had a good conversation, a long conversation. So Bill's actually turning that into 2 parts. So there's a part 1 and a part 2. I guess we had too much fun catching up. So if you want to subscribe to Where I'm From, you can check that out. There's also a video version on the Where I'm From YouTube channel, so you can check that out. But definitely check out Bill's podcast. It's pretty great, and he's a good podcaster and a friend of Supergirl Radio. And he also requested that he make more appearances on Supergirl Radio. So,
well, we would love to have him anytime.
So maybe we'll try to have him back for a Christmas episode that we do maybe in the coming weeks. So maybe we'll see if we can get him back on the podcast. So definitely check it out. And not just because I'm on it, but because Bill does a great job with podcasting. So definitely check that out.
And you can learn more about Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, I have a lot of things to talk about with Birmingham. So definitely give it a listen.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Mojotastic. You can also find me as a co-host on Legends of Tomorrow podcast and DCTV After Dark. We are, I think we talked about this last time, Rebecca, but we are recording this week our episode on Taylor Swift and Carly Rae Jepsen.
Oh, yeah.
They both released new albums. Beaker is so excited because he knows that today was the Taylor Swift pre-sale, and he knows that we were waitlisted and didn't get tickets, did we? And so he knows
Beaker's
that
so bummed.
he's so bummed. He's a big Swiftie. That's a thing that not a lot of people know about Beaker. He doesn't want to talk about it. It's still too raw for him.
Yeah. No, I get it.
But we will be talking about those 2 new albums, so that should be released sometime this week. So
awesome.
If you're a Swiftie too and you're upset also because you got waitlisted and you're not going to get to see Taylor, you're never going to get to see Taylor. You too you can just listen to the podcast, and it will be not at all like going to a concert, but it'll be fun anyway. So we think that you should check it out.
So I shouldn't mention that I've actually seen Taylor Swift in concert. I shouldn't rub
That's
that in.
cool.
Is what
I bet it was it fun? I bet it was
yeah,
fun.
it was pretty fun. It was the Reputation tour. Her Reputation album is like one of my all-time favorites. It's
a great album.
But I was really kind of surprised by parts of the concert because I was like, there's a lot of snakes involved.
Twist
with the decorations, and like she went on this thing where she could like go across the crowd, and it was like this big snake, and I was like, what's with the snakes, Taylor Swift?
Snakes. That's a lot of snakes.
Because when I go, my conspiracy theory brain is like, snakes are generally seen as a symbolism for Satan and the devil and temptation, and I don't know if she thought about it that far, but I was just like, what's going on here? There's a recurring theme here of these snakes.
To be fair, though, have you looked at a little snake's face? Because they're pretty cute, actually, if you zoom on in.
I mean,
I guess you could see their little beady eyes. Maybe she just looked into the eyes of a snake and was like, "This is a beautiful animal, majestic."
I would like to believe that.
I feel like it might have been more like a Britney Spears when she comes out with the
also
giant
snakes,
like "I'm a slave
also
for you" kind of thing. So much snakes.
So many snakes. I just
I gotta be honest.
A lot of questions.
I went through like a period where I went to see a lot of live music. No snakes. And now I feel like I didn't get the full experience with there being no animals anywhere in my concert going experiences. Maybe she'll bring the snakes back out.
Snakes are in.
Snakes are in. Snakes are it, baby.
So if anybody has any thoughts on why Taylor Swift used a lot of snakes in her Reputation tour, I'd be open to explanations. I had a lot of questions.
I feel like people really read into everything with Taylor Swift. I saw one thing that they were like, the next album she's going to re-record is this one because this number in this color showed up briefly in the background of a video, and I was like, I love the energy here. I just love people who like care a lot about things that don't matter. I feel like I'm always tired by like the world being on fire. Like, yeah, let's deep dive into what Taylor may or may not be trying to tell us. That's what I want, where I want to focus my energy. I don't have it for reality. Like, let's go in. What is she trying to say? I think Kat's going to do a little bit of that. I think she's going to surface some Taylor Swift like conspiracy theories, like between the lines of the lyric, and I'm very excited for that.
Ask Kat about the snakes.
I'm going to ask her about
ask her if there's any snake imagery.
I have
recurring.
2 notes for myself from both from our conversations. One is now ask Kat about snakes. The other one is ask Kat about Paul McCartney is dead conspiracy.
Yes. Those are important questions. I would love to know what Kat's thoughts are on those 2 things. I'm going to find you some pictures of the snake imagery. I've got I feel like those exist somewhere from the Reputation.
I'm sure they do.
I have a lot of questions. All right.
I'm putting those in our Legends doc. Don't worry.
Awesome. Good. Well, hopefully Kat will have some answers for me with all those questions that I have about Taylor Swift. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear that. So looking forward to that Legends of Tomorrow podcast episode with the legendary ladies on Taylor Swift conspiracies. So excited. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio though. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And thanks for joining us for Supergirl Radio Rewind.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira.
I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.